I mean, there's some people that are bums outside the gym,
That's true.
and they put in the work inside the gym, and then you kind of see like they can't figure out how to scrape two nickels together outside the gym.
Yeah.
But for the most part, if you see somebody, showing up on time and they're real eager to train, they want to learn, and they want to find out more about how they can get better, and they figure out ways of getting better by learning from me and learning from the other people in the group. It's like that's probably somebody that would be pretty good to work here.
Yeah. Yeah. I never understood, confining that gym mentality to the gym, the idea of progression, incremental growth,
Right.
of challenging yourself, and then they leave the gym and it's all gone. It's just like do whatever.
Progressive overload.
Progressive overload.
Progressively learning, progressively adding. It's from 1 week to the next, you're like, I'm just gonna add more things in. I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna do an extra rep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do an extra set. I'm gonna add extra weight, extra resistance. Resistance. It's like resistance could be anything. The resistance to get out of bed on time. You can add resistance to any part of your life, whether it's your diet, whether it's studying for school. I think but like where I grew up and when I grew up, they just said, you're retarded, and so you're going in these classes with these other kids that are lighting the desk on fire and drooling and shitting themselves and whatever else was going on. And so that's, that was my, like school experience. But for nowadays, there's kids they'll label and they'll say they have ADHD. And one of the things that happens to a lot of kids, I mean, some people are more severe than others.
Yeah.
And any sort of issue mentally is a weird thing to get into. It gets to be like controversial, because hard for me to comprehend. If you come in every day, you're like, I got a headache, I don't want to train, I'd be like, what a pussy. But maybe your head actually fucking hurts.
Yeah.
But I can't like empathize with it. But when it comes to ADHD, some people I've talked to that have had it, they can concentrate and focus on a lot of the things that they like to do, but they can't concentrate or focus on a lot of the things they don't like to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that actually just seems like you're a normal person.
Yeah, of course.
I feel that way. Like I don't want to concentrate or do anything that I don't want to do. The stuff that I want to do, I'm into it.
Yeah.
I'm about it. I'll do
Maybe
whatever
they're just optimal human beings. Maybe they have it all figured out. I don't know.
Yeah, because you just discard stuff that you don't feel like fucking looking at or doing, right?
Life's short. Yeah, I agree with that.
Do you read a lot?
I don't read as much as I used to, but reading was it was a big part of like a growth and development phase for me. So I mean, everything I was reading was kind of your typical personal development type literature, but I love reading. See, my philosophy with reading has always been if somebody can pack their life's experience into a book, if you're getting 50 years of trial and error in a book, and you keep reading these books, you're shaving off so much, so many iterations of failure that you would have had to go through otherwise. So I think that it's a smart position to start from when you're doing something. But then I also think you can get too into it and you start to overthink things and you read, it's like information overload and you read too many things and then you just get paralyzed by indecision. So I try to chill on that a little bit now. Or actually, that's my advanced excuse for not reading.
What about audiobooks, though? Because you guys travel a shit ton, so I would imagine there's plenty of like car time and stuff.
I do like audiobooks. Yeah. I especially like when you're trying to get through a bunch of books and you just put that thing up to like 1.5x and you just start burning through books.
I'm not smart enough to do 1.5. I can only do 1.25.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't do 1.5.
Yeah, they start sounding like chipmunks after a while, right?
Yeah, that's true.
By the time I process what they said, they're already like on the next chapter.
You're like, what am I even listening to at this point? Yeah, I found that to be true though as well. Analysis paralysis, right? Like you start to. That's happened to me in my own lifting career. What should I do next? That's not really right because that doesn't match up well with what I did on the previous set. It doesn't match up with what I did yesterday. It turns you into a big pussy basically.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You're like, man, I'm being like, I'm applying, too much intellectual thought into something that just needs to be savage in the first place, and I might as well just chalk up and go and not worry about it too much.
Yes.
I mean, within some parameters of like being safe and being smart, you don't want to overdo it, but at the same time, the only way to get some of the results sometimes is to have it be overdone.
There's a balance to that, I think. There's definitely a balance you have to have. There's some people that I think work hard, and if they had applied a bit more intelligence and planning to what they're doing, a bit more game plan, they would save themselves so much hard work.
Yeah.
But then you have those guys that plan meticulously and don't want to do anything. And that's an issue too. So
Efficiency is important, in everything that
Yes.
you do, and trying to figure out how do I get more out of this. Converting over to like some of the bodybuilding training I've been doing lately, I'm like, oh my God, the workout just took like 40 minutes.
Mhm.
That's weird. My powerlifting workouts, they always take like 3 hours, and they shouldn't have. I mean, it's the nature of training in a group sometimes, and investing your
Sure.
time in others, and investing your time in, what I thought it took to be a powerlifter, which was having, these larger rest intervals and stuff. But, through what I'm doing now, it's like, just keep moving, don't get stuck.
Mhm.
And I try to do that in as many spots as I can. But at the same time, I like to relax, and I like to just chat. You saw
Yeah.
today, like, you came in, we got some lifting done, and then it was like, there was stuff that I was doing. I didn't have to do any of that. We could have cut right in here and podcasted, but I ended up getting like in a meeting, and ended up, meeting some new people that came into the store, and like all these things. It's hard to balance all that stuff out.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, that sort of breakneck pace works when you're moving towards a goal single-mindedly. But as a general lifestyle for the rest of your life, like that doesn't work.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm always looking at too. I'm like, what about tomorrow?
Yeah.
Like, so somebody asked me yesterday, they're like, should I wake up a lot earlier and do fasted cardio? Like, cause they're talking about like some of the stuff I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I said, no, because, you're not doing what I'm doing. Like, I'm only doing what I'm doing for several weeks.
Mhm.
And, this is about the long haul. And should you implement some cardiovascular training? Sure. That'll probably could help you lose some weight, especially if you've never utilized it before. It could help your overall health. Could be something beneficial to try for a little while. And if it doesn't work, you kick it out. But there's no reason to start out with it being so difficult when you're just kind of starting a journey. People they want to add too much to their plate, and it's like, let's just take this one thing at a time. Like for me, my Achilles heel is stretching. Like, I hate stretching. And so if someone said, hey, don't stretch before your workouts, well, then now I'm just not going to stretch at all.
Yeah.
And it might not be the most ideal place, but again, I think you don't want to hamper the enthusiasm that someone might have.
Mhm.
You just kind of let it ride. You're like, go ahead, do it that way so that you can do it again tomorrow. How do we get through these workouts and through some of these things so we can continuously do it?
Yeah. What's sustainable?
Right.
Yeah.
That's with your food, with your training, and for you, being an actor and trying to work your way up the ladder, that's got to be extremely stressful, along with trying to keep the diet intact and trying to keep the training going. How are you able to do all these different things at one time?
It's a breeze. No. No. So
Piece
I mean,
of cake.
no. It's definitely a challenge, and I mean, what works for me is, for one, having my priorities set out beforehand. So I definitely don't like to fly by
Priority
the
number
seat of my
one, your
pants.
girlfriend. Okay, go ahead.
Priority number one, points. So I mean, yeah, it's having those priorities set out beforehand and knowing exactly what I'm working towards. But these things are in limbo and they're shifting around. Sometimes fitness is more of a priority. Sometimes I step away from it. Work is more of a priority. I have my times when I need to connect with my family more. So I think without having a long-term picture of where you're going and of, sort of what matters to you, what your goals are, and then thinking about just your life in general, like what sort of human being do you want to be? Because there are people that they devote everything to work.
Right.
And I think they completely lack in other aspects of their life. And then
Just
you
like
see
we
down the
talked
road-
about with a gym rat, right? So,
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
the guy's like putting in all this effort. He looks great. Everything's, he's strong and he's got all these different things. And then he just has no life outside of it. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, what's that about?
Yeah. Why would you do that? Because you're basically cutting yourself short of so much of what life has to offer. But for me, I also like the whole like Arnold mentality of adding things onto your life. And, through those progressive overload principles and concepts of like hypertrophy and growth, you do become acclimated to pressure. You can suddenly take on more. You are able to focus in more, zone in, get more things done. You figure out what works for you. So I like starting with doing too much, I think it's better to do too much in the beginning,
Mm.
and then you figure out what your spots are, what your areas are, what you want to focus on, and that's when you can really narrow
You
in.
can trim the fat later on.
Exactly.
You can
Exactly.
cut back.
It's a bulk.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one thing that sometimes I leave absent from this podcast because we just sit here and just start rapping with people is like how do you personally make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, how are you having something sustainable while going towards your goal before you were able to make some money?
Interesting.
No one really ever talks about like just
Yeah.
flat out making money. And sometimes I'll have someone on the show and I'll forget to ask them. Like the guy's got some great lifts and does some cool things, and it's like, well, wait a second, how's this person like affording to even have this lifestyle of not having a 9 to 5 or not,
Yeah.
having a typical job or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think that's one of like the biggest hindrances for a lot of people towards going towards this stuff. It's like, am I going to be broke? Am I going to be living in my car? Stuff I was thinking about for sure. So I'll take it back to when I wasn't acting, when I was doing economics in college.
How old are you now?
23.
Okay.
So I was doing economics in college, studying that, and it was basically providing me a pretty clear path forward. Every summer I would internship in a potential field that I thought I could see myself working in the future. So accounting, consulting, areas like that. I would do that, save the money. That would usually take me through a good chunk of the school year, and then I would work on-campus jobs. So when I decided to go for acting, it wasn't the most intelligent plan, but it worked for me at the time, and it's not something I would recommend to anyone else. But it was completely cutting off anything else and going towards this thing single-mindedly. And it was pretty much 1 year of obsessive work. So let's see, this was about junior year of college.
Which isn't really that long. I mean, it is a long time, like when you're doing it, but a year to get a. We'll talk about it in a minute, but a year to get like a pretty good solid gig.
Yeah.
Isn't that long a time?
No, yeah, and that was pretty much the goal was, so I had no acting experience, I had no connections, didn't really know what I was doing in the industry, so I set a goal for myself, and I strongly believe in the power of big goals, chunking goals, daily consistent action towards those. So I set a goal that by the end of the year, before I graduate, I want to book a leading role in a major TV show. So that was pretty much the goal right there. And what I did towards that was I then set, from that yearly goal, I set monthly goals, I set weekly goals, daily goals, chunked the thing all the way down to where I was working every single day on this, getting up 4 a.m. There were no weekends, there were no parties, there was, pretty much no social life, to be honest. So this is why I don't recommend that to people, because it's not sustainable, and it wasn't sustainable for me then. On top of that, I was vegan. So I was whole foods, plant-based.
You're off the team. Vegan. You're
I'll
out.
see you guys.
Yeah. Hey, that was a decent show, but let's bring it in.
So yeah, I'm a recovering vegan. And so I did that for that year. And basically by the end of the year, I had booked that Power Rangers gig. But the steps that it took to get there, it was, auditioning, going for everything I could, doing small theater gigs, and then going into pitching to agencies. And then from pitching to agencies, then I was doing commercials, and then I was doing short films, and then I did a feature film. And finally, I was able to work my way into that. So for money in that time, I would have done whatever I had to do, but I had my savings from internships. And beyond just that, I had, on-campus jobs that I was working. So I was doing classes, working, going to LA, doing the audition process. So a lot of things going on at that time.
You mentioned, waking up early. And last time you were here, you and I kind of talked about some of that. You know, just trying to make sure you're not burning the candle, from both ends and from the middle,
Yeah.
And that gets to be kind of a tricky thing because you want your goals and you're like, okay, well, this is the map. This is the way that I'm going to get these goals. And I have this this kind of checklist of things that I want to get done every day. And in order to get them done, it's going to be a long day every day.
Yeah.
And every day is going to be like a grind, right? And it gets to be hard to balance it out because then you run into situations where you're not really taking care of yourself. You're not sleeping enough. Things can start to slip. Your relationship could start to slip. Your work could even slip because you're just fucking tired. You're just fatigued,
Yeah.
and you're trying to train and you're trying to diet, and maybe you're like even in like a caloric deficit because you're trying to be like leaner or whatever it might be. That gets really hard to try to juggle and to try to figure out.
I think it's important to be set in the goal that you're trying to move towards, but be flexible in your approach. So if you're burning out and you're about to send yourself to the hospital and you have adrenal fatigue and it's not working for you, I think step away from it and reconsider what approach do I need moving forwards, making micro adjustments.
Maybe just recognizing that sleep is part of the pie chart to success too.
Yes, absolutely.
Sleep and your food are going to be important. Having time to yourself.
Yeah.
It's like it kind of sucks to block everybody else out for a while, but sometimes you just need an hour or two. But if we go back to what we talked about in the very beginning, was figuring out like longevity. Like we're here to play the long game. I'm not, you weren't put on this earth to be the fucking Red Ranger, right?
Yeah.
You're put on this earth for much more. You'll have bigger and better acting gigs than that. You'll have bigger and better life successes than just that one thing. But if you're, you hold everything so tight that that's your goal, then maybe you are stretching yourself too thin, and maybe you don't end up getting anywhere else.
Yeah, that's having a bigger perspective on things and having like life goals set out. So if I had only set that one goal for myself to get that role, and then it happened, well, where do I go from there? And that's where a lot of people fall off, and then you get where are they now, and that kind of stuff, which.
Right.
I hate that stuff, man. It's like
and sometimes it's ridiculous though when somebody says where are they now, because it's like somebody did something so big. You're just like, what the fuck else are they gonna do?
Yeah.
Where's Sylvester Stallone nowadays? It's like, who the fuck cares? Like he gets so much. Or somebody that starred in like a Harry Potter film, or like those are epic films that will stand the test of time. They'll be around long enough, and anybody who's able to land something like that, it's really like a magical thing. But so how have you been able to, something like the Red Ranger gig? You mentioned you didn't have any acting experience and you didn't have any connections. So how did something like that come to be?
So that was basically at UC San Diego. The first step I thought I could take was going for theater, because we had a theater program there. So I started applying to plays. Did plays, and then I did about 3 plays, and from there I started applying to short films at the college and at local colleges. Then I started applying for non-union commercials. I started doing those. From there, I put together a package with modeling shoots, hit up an agency, and then from the agency, then they started sending me out for bigger gigs.
So these are a lot of things that you had to do by yourself.
Yes, yeah.
And like in terms of those things need to look professional, right? So like how did you figure out some of that? Just like look stuff up on YouTube, or
you mean in terms of acting,
or did
what
you
steps to take?
In terms of like your portfolio and your profile and your headshots and stuff, like how are you able to kind of put your resume, how are you able to put these things together to make them look professional? Or did you just go to somebody that did that, you just paid them, kind of thing?
I networked a lot. I got a lot of people's feedback and advice on that sort of thing. I looked a lot of things up, lots of research. Yeah, I just spread myself out in different areas and figured out what I needed to know. Like I got familiar with my terrain, and then I just kept moving forward from there.
Yeah. Well, that's simple enough, right?
Yeah.
And then what's something from theater that carries over to television? Because my understanding, which is not much, but my understanding of theater is that it's like a little like overboard, a little overdone. It's a little like extra animated, perhaps, than TV. And I don't even know if that's right, but did some of that freeness of like really just going for it prepare you for television, or was it something else?
In terms of Power Rangers, all of it carried over.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're not doing method acting here.
Yeah. So the show is it's for kids. So kids like to see stuff that's big, right? That's overdone.
it's an action adventure show geared towards like 5 to 12-year-olds. So we definitely went big with it. But what carries over for that, I think one thing is being adaptable with different circumstances. So I learned this from theater, but also just from public speaking and just being in different situations where, that first time I was on set, literally the first day being on set with that big production, cameras everywhere, you got the grips and people walking around and, everybody's asking you something, they're micing you up and everything. I hadn't been in that situation before, but it was sort of going in there with a certain, like, this is going to be good. It's going to be fun. And whatever happens, we're just going to go with it. So that flexibility that I got from theater, that I got from public speaking of just, you take a deep breath and you go for it. I think that definitely paid off a lot because I could see how people would be in that situation and just freeze.
Right.
And then they're like, okay, we're going to come in for your close-up now. Do you remember the 2 pages of dialogue that, you're supposed to do? So
You're like, huh?
yeah, suddenly you don't remember anything.
Yeah. How do you get yourself into a frame of mind to remember that kind of stuff? Like, how do you rehearse or prepare for that? Are you, just drinking coffee and reading it every day? Or, like, is there some sort of ritual that you have to get your mind right for it? Because I'd imagine it's got to be tough.
I think the most important thing for me is, for one, knowing the lines to the point where they're almost subconscious. So you're actually able to forget about the lines and then look at someone and just talk to them. And you kind of know what you're going to talk about and you just start talking. That's one thing. The second thing is just relaxing. If you just got too much energy going into it and you're too nervous, that doesn't serve you well in any respect. So I think relaxing and just taking a deep breath and saying, okay, let's just talk about something. So that's sort of my frame of mind going into it. I usually just chill out, know my lines, and go for it. Yeah, we're watching some of it here. I remember that day. I was exhausted.
What's your training been like over the last several years that has helped kind of prepare you for this show? I imagine this show has some physical aspects to it, correct?
Yeah, so we do a good amount of action. We do have stunt doubles, but a lot of the stuff without the helmet is us. So I had a martial arts background going into this. I did 7 years of martial arts when I was a kid. So that was mainly karate. And then from that, I moved into, it was mostly arm wrestling, to be honest. I trained almost specifically for arm wrestling. Powerlifting was like a supplement to that. And then I got more into like track and field. And from there, I've gotten more into like bodybuilding, weight training, stuff like that. So it's just a mix of a lot of different things. But physical activity's kind of been a constant for me since I was about 5.
How do we get you on Cobra Kai? Have you seen Cobra Kai?
Dude.
So Cobra Kai, man.
That would be sick.
Yeah, that was something I was looking at.
Yeah, they got another season going.
Yeah. No, that was something I'd gone in for that, and it was going really well, and just didn't make that final round. So,
oh man.
I shudder every time I hear it. It's okay.
Will, can you pull your microphone a little bit closer to you? Just kink it around. So push it towards Mike or towards Mark.
Okay.
And then there you go.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. You're in there.
Yeah, there you go. How old were you during this last this arm wrestling tournament or whatever this is?
Oh man. I must have been about 18. Probably about 18 there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were good times. You can see my body hasn't changed at all.
Still got them shoulders.
Yeah, no, that was fun. Arm wrestling's a really fun sport. Like it's so underground and most people don't know about it. But they have, you know about John Berzink and Devin Laird.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Travis Bajent and all those guys. Yeah. So they're like the heroes of the sport.
Yeah, savages.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Documentary on John Berzink.
Pulling John, yeah.
That's a really, really cool documentary. Yeah. For anybody that hasn't seen any sort of arm wrestling, you should watch that. I mean, it's intense. And then he kicks the crap out of everybody. He's not that heavy.
No, he pretty much weighed in about 200 pounds his whole career. So he was always a middleweight guy. And I think it was from about 1984 to the early 2000s, he was nearly undefeated. Lost maybe a couple matches, if he was fatigued. And he basically traveled the globe looking for, all these Russian monsters and whoever he could find in any country, beat everybody as a middleweight. And now he's known as the greatest of all time as far as arm wrestling goes.
He
So
just crushes everybody.
yeah, the guy's pretty crazy.
What's up with your diet? You
Um,
stay lean, you stay in shape, and you do a ketogenic style diet?
yeah. So coming off of a vegan diet, I pretty much went 180 with keto.
Why'd you come off the vegan diet?
Oh man, that was 4 years of hell. So the vegan diet, I was basically doing like by the book. It was whole foods, plant-based, high fiber, beans, legumes, tons of vegetables, starchy carbs, oatmeal, fruits. And the issue with that was flagging energy levels. I had really bad energy. I'm sure my vitamin B levels were pretty low. I was supplementing the heck out of the thing. So I was supplementing as much as I could, but I had no energy. I was losing muscle mass. I didn't like my body composition. Fat was a bit too high and muscle mass was a bit too low. So I wasn't digging that at all. And mental clarity, which is another really important thing.
You
I
got
had
into
so
a
much
lot
trouble.
of this early on. I mean, the arm wrestling thing, you're 18. What age were you at when you started like dieting and stuff?
I started arm wrestling at 13, and I think I started dieting probably about 15. I started playing around with different diets. So
did you have any like body image issues? Did you think you were skinny fat, or think you were too skinny? You wanted to be bigger, or was there anything there? Or you just wanted to perform better, or lift better, or look better?
it's funny because I don't think about the stuff much, but looking at it now, probably. I was an extremely skinny kid, so very, very skinny kid. I mean, I'm still skinny, but more of a fit physique now. But so I could have had issues with that. The main thing that got me into diet was actually skin. So I had terrible skin, probably the worst acne of anybody I ever met. And that was what got me on a vegan diet. So I started doing that and did that all throughout college. And it got better, but there eventually came a point where I don't think I was getting enough out of it.
I see people sometimes, like I love going to coffee shops. I'll see people with just crazy amounts of acne, and they're just chomping down on some like croissant or donut. And I'm like, like whether the donut actually causes that is highly debatable, but it's certainly not helping.
No, of course
You
not.
know what I mean?
Of course not, yeah.
Just because it has an inflammatory response in your body. And I've seen Dr. Baker, talk about the carnivore diet, and he's got before and after pictures of a lot of different people that are like, here's my acne before, and here's my acne after, and it's like not all the time is it gone, but it's a huge improvement.
Yeah.
You were able to improve it through somewhat through the vegan diet, and then somewhat through what you're doing now.
It pretty much improved completely through a vegan diet, and then when I switched to keto, keto worked really well as well. So I mean, I haven't really had to deal with that since I was maybe 17, so it's not really been a problem. But when I switched to keto, it was like night and day. So I pretty much for 4 years on that vegan diet, I had no satiety. It was like any meal I ate, no matter how much I ate, stomach, bloating, I wasn't full at all.
Yeah.
2 hours later, I was ravenously hungry, hangry, like angsty, like needed food immediately. So that wasn't working for me, especially on set. So after the first season of Power Rangers, I was still vegan then, and I finally decided, okay, like this isn't working. We had a 3-week hiatus in between seasons. So I went home, went back to the computer, started researching a bunch, all over YouTube, reading articles, and then I decided to try a protocol where it was fasting throughout the day. I was still doing like my general, compound lifts, some cardio, and then at night I would just have a bunch of vegetables and meat and, added fats. Dropped a bunch of weight. It was mostly water weight, I'm pretty sure, at the beginning, So dropped a bunch of water weight and then really started leaning out. And my satiety was better, my energy was better, and I felt better overall. So that's when I realized I was onto something there, and I've been kind of playing with it ever since.
And it made you feel better pretty much immediately?
So much better. Yeah. It was night and day.
Did you have like a older sibling or maybe like an uncle, parent, somebody that would kind of motivate you, or that you've seen them and that's kind of pushed you towards like, okay, maybe I do want to mess with my diet or mess with fitness or anything like that?
So in terms of fitness influences, nobody really in my family, but a lot of it was, so growing up watching pro wrestling,
Nice.
idolized a lot of their physiques. And then when I got into the whole pumping iron and stuff like that, so I was 13 when I watched Pumping Iron. Got my first Gold's Gym membership, and the craziest thing was Ed Corney was training there. So he was training at the Gold's Gym in Modesto, and I was watching Pumping Iron probably like every day at that point.
I think Ed Corney is still in this area, I think.
He's up north. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. So yeah, I was watching that thing like every day. To the
Ed
point.
Corney hits that weird pose where he like throws his arm up and like flexes his serratus, and Arnold's
Yeah.
like, "That's what I call posing." He's all
That's
excited
what I
about
call-
it.
But yeah,
Remember that line? Yeah, I
in
remember.
South Africa.
That was an amazing movie.
Yes.
I love that movie so much. There's so many great lines in there, and then like the that scene where they're having dinner together, and Arnold's just totally ripping Louis apart. I don't know if you remember. You remember that scene?
Was this that breakfast before the
breakfast.
competition?
Yeah, breakfast.
Yeah.
And so Arnold, he looks amazing.
Yeah.
There's Ed Corney. Arnold is talking to Lou Ferrigno, and he's talking to Lou Ferrigno's dad, which is great because Lou is sitting right there too.
And he like doesn't even acknowledge him.
He doesn't acknowledge
That's
him.
so good.
And he's like, yeah, a couple weeks from now it'd be perfect for him.
Yeah. He'd have everything dialed in.
Yeah, just killing him. And like here he is working so hard, and he just knows. Arnold knows that even just putting that out there in the universe is damaging. He knows
Yes.
that's gonna impact his dad and him.
Yeah.
He knows
Yeah.
it's going to be positive for him, and it's just like, man, that's just so savage.
But then he goes, yeah, in a couple of weeks it'd be perfect for him.
But what the heck?
But in a couple of weeks I'd just be better.
Yeah, yeah. What the hell? I get bigger too. He says.
Yeah.
So what the hell? Let's get over with it.
Yeah.
No, he was a master of mental warfare. That guy definitely knew about that.
So you're a big wrestling fan.
Huge wrestling fan.
You ever think about getting into wrestling, jumping off the top rope?
Who would I be? Like Rey Mysterio's competition, or
I guess so.
get a
Yeah, you'd
cruiserweight
have
belt.
to, yeah. You would have to. Well, it wouldn't be too much different than what you do now. You'd wear a mask,
Yeah.
right, and you'd fly around, right?
How tall is Shawn Michaels? He's
Shawn Michaels probably like 6'1".
oh, okay. He's bigger than he seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the wrestlers are actually really tall.
Yeah.
Even somebody like John Cena, who seems like normal height, is like 6'2". Stone
Yeah.
Cold is like 6'2" or 6'3". Even Vince McMahon is like 6'3".
Yeah.
A lot of these, and that's on the short side. Then there's everybody else that's like taller than that.
Damn.
The Rock 6'5".
Yeah, Triple H is 6'4". Shawn Michaels 6'1". Kurt Angle 6 flat.
6 flat.
Yeah, but probably because his neck's getting all jacked up, so he's getting shorter.
Yeah. He's lost a few inches.
Yeah, getting shorter over the years. But yeah, obviously I grew up loving pro wrestling. Who are some of your favorites?
So for me, it was a lot of the Attitude Era growing up. So it was the typical
D-Generation
guys.
X coming in. and all
Oh,
that?
DX
Yeah.
was huge.
Yeah.
I love DX, and I was watching DX when it was Shawn Michaels was out for that few years where he was
His
trying to
back
find his
and everything?
smile again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was going through his back issues. So I was watching it when it was like Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, X-Pac, China. So I was watching that a lot.
Road Dogg,
Undertaker, obviously.
Road Dogg hooks us up with tickets when WWE comes into town. When they come into Sacramento, I get a text from him, and he'll say, "Hey, man, any of you guys need some tickets for the show?"
God.
Because he's like an agent for them now. He helps kind of more behind the scenes. These guys, sometimes they have a very rough lifestyle.
It's tough.
The amount of travel that they have, and they end up kind of living like a rock star lifestyle. A lot of it's their own doing, but it's a very painful sport, and they end up with painkillers and all kinds of different things. And Road Dogg was one of them, but he does a lot better now.
Yeah, one of my guys was Hulk Hogan, and when he came back, I think in the early 2000s, he came back and did the whole Mr. America thing, and then he went into
the NWO.
NWO. So I watched a bit of WCW when I was a kid. Love the NWO, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, all those guys.
Yeah, the NWO stuff was a big deal, and that's when that's when wrestling really took off because the WCW was growing, and so was the WWE at the same time.
The
And
Monday Night Wars.
Yeah, the Monday Night Wars, and it was like they were vying for position on who's going to watch what, and then also there was another TV show on at the same time called Monday Night Football, and it was like Monday Night Football would lose to either the WWE or the WCW like almost every week,
So
which
what
is
was
crazy.
the competitor to that was the XFL?
Oh yeah,
Was that it?
Yeah, when he brought out Vince McMahon started the XFL was
There's
a
Rick
pretty
Rude,
big deal.
Ravishing Rick Rude.
Who's been somebody in the acting world who's been someone who's been influential?
Two guys. So there was one guy, Theo James, who he's kind of like the star of Divergent, Insurgent, Detergent. I think he's got some more movies coming out. But I was watching his career trajectory, and it was over 5 years he booked that lead role in Divergent. And I was looking at that. He was coming up from short films, and then he was doing some supporting roles, and suddenly he got that. And I thought, a lot of people at the time were telling me, oh, you kind of look like Theo James. And I looked this guy up, and I thought, he got a philosophy degree, and then he decided to go into this. And I kind of connected with that. I thought, okay, I kind of look like this guy. I haven't done anything related to acting, but, he started after college. So I took him as inspiration to go for it. But in terms of acting styles, I still haven't done the kind of style that I want to do, but the guy I always like is Marlon Brando. I thought that guy just had a lot of swagger for his time, It was completely just like he really took a different spin on things back then. You came in with a lot of the Clark Gables and the very cookie cutter, good looking, leading men. And then you had this guy that just was kind of a slacker and didn't seem to care. And, and it worked out pretty well for him. But liked his movies.
I'm watching Goliath right now, and I'm just always so surprised that not surprised. I guess it shouldn't be a surprise, but Billy Bob Thornton is amazing, and it's just like so casual. Like I guess that's like the art of acting in some way. Like if you said, "Hey, Mark, come in here pissed off and like ask me to leave" or something, it's like that's really not that hard to do, But if you said, "Hey, come in here and you're going to ask me a couple questions about, what I did the last few days," and it's very specific lines of what what you're going to read, but there's not a lot of like emotion behind it.
Yeah,
that would be a lot harder, and you're going to say something that maybe disappoints me, and then I got to kind of like walk off. It'd be like that would be hard. Like I've never done that before, so I'd be like, "Oh, what the fuck do I do?"
Yeah,
but it's really cool that these guys can take these words that are written out, by somebody else almost all the time, right? And interpret them their own way and put their own spin on it, put their own exclamation points, commas, and things like that into the dialogue, and really like kind of breathe life into it. It's really amazing.
They absolutely.
It's a really incredible thing. You watch someone like Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, he's
like
good.
Somebody who's like intentionally never the star. It's like, well, he has to do certain things so that he's not the star. Like he has to still do really well. He still has to do what he's called upon to do, but also he has to like be less than spectacular because he's not the lead role. And there's certain kind of context that go within that. And you watch it and you're just like, I do not understand how the fuck they're able to do it. It's really amazing. It's really cool to watch.
Yeah, the hardest thing is to sit there and like just to think, to do nothing. Because a lot of the time, if you're reading a scene and you could tell that this is going to lead to anger, it's easy to play angry, and to it's like putting a mask on and to put the facial expressions on and to really put an act on. But that's not how anybody is in real life. If you're pissed at somebody, you're probably not going to show them that,
Right.
It's probably inside, but there's something subtle. There's an undercurrent to it that people can feel. And to get that on screen when it's fictional, you're reading dialogue, you have things that you're supposed to say. You're manipulating your own emotions. It's a really tricky thing. And I think some people can even be damaged by it, when they go a bit too hard with that.
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis retired. So, some people definitely go really, really far with it. But
what about like Jim Carrey? Like Jim Carrey, I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan, and I'm still a fan of like even just some of the motivational stuff and stuff that he shares. Like I think it's cool when somebody has a I don't know, when they're just seeking other things other than just the regular things that we're all searching for as humans, which is like just like money and fame and like I don't know, love and affection and these other things, right? He's just like he's on a different level, kind of seeking other things because maybe he cracked at some point or whatever the case may be. But he ended up kind of going through that through acting because he's been through so many different roles, and I think it was the role where he played the wrestler. Or played the not the wrestler, the comedian.
Was it Andy Kaufman?
The Andy Kaufman movie where he like literally like cracked because he would go around acting as him even when they were off screen.
Yeah,
and they were like, "We're not shooting," and he would do weird stuff, and people were like, "Well, I guess this is the way he is."
Yeah, I still haven't seen that. I gotta watch it.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah.
There's a behind the scenes documentary on it too, which is even crazier. But I would imagine that maybe that's how deep you got to go sometimes to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta dive in, otherwise it's not gonna maybe look as authentic as it should be.
I think it depends on what you're going for too, because I couldn't imagine Arnold or Stallone ever doing that, you know?
Right.
Because they're trying to play something completely different. So it does depend on the genre, I think.
Yeah. Well, they're also
Yeah.
they're playing themselves, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and,
Yeah.
and even if they're playing a character, it's just not the same as I guess being another human being. I think what happened with Jim Carrey though, I think there was just too many weird connections to Andy Kaufman. But I wish I remember the name of the documentary, but guys should check it out because it's cool. He goes so deep that he can't get back, and it kind of ruins his life in some weird ways. You know?
Yeah, because I think like Jim Carrey was, or I think it was Jim Carrey talking about like when he just like walks up to somebody and says, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" People just start laughing. It's like, well, I'm not trying to be funny. Like, just because I'm Ace Ventura, like, I'm not, take me serious. So I think that's part of what kind of fucked him up. But what I was going to ask you, like, what gets the nerves going more, public speaking or like acting, like in front of the camera, in front of a set and all that?
Acting's actually a lot more relaxed because you know everybody on set, so you know what's going to happen, you know what you're going to say. There's some uncertainty around the moment, if you're going to bring it or not, but you get to know everybody really well. Like, I mean, you're drinking with the guys on the cast and crew every Friday, and you're hanging out, so it's pretty comfortable, and it's like a closed set. Public speaking, man, that's exciting. That's really fun to do because you get a crowd out there. It's the same thing as theater, where you get the adrenaline pumping, and if you can convey your message to them, and if they can feel it, that's a really cool live connection. I'm sure that's what wrestlers feel when they're, out there doing a match. But it's live, and you can feel that connection. So, and when it's going well, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, everything that you do in life is like a sale. Like you're trying to convince people of something specific. Sometimes you're actually trying to sell something, but there's other times where it's more indirect than that, and you're just trying to sell people on your idea or concept.
Yeah.
And for you might say, I started in this business young. I made a decision to be an actor. I never looked back. I got to some of my goals. There's a lot more goals ahead of me, and I'm going to attack those goals with everything I have. And you're trying to portray a certain message, and you're trying to get people behind it because you want people to kind of understand. Okay, shit. He didn't really have special circumstances that made him better off than the next guy to get started. He just started, and he just went after it.
That's the important thing for people to understand that I try to convey, especially when I go back to Modesto, and I've like spoken at the schools there.
Modesto.
Good old Modesto, the 209, the home of the Diaz brothers.
Oh, yeah.
No, they're Stockton.
Oh, yeah, Stockton.
Yeah, they're close.
So Modesto doesn't even have that.
No, we don't even have. We have George Lucas.
And you.
We have George Lucas. We have me. We have Jeremy Renner. Jeremy Renner's
That's a
great.
big deal.
You can kind of claim Kaepernick. Isn't he from like somewhere out there?
Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He went to Pittman High School or something like that.
Somewhere down there.
He's in the area.
Yeah.
George Lucas. I think you can just stop right there, right?
Yeah.
That's enough.
Star
Yeah.
Wars.
Enough,
You
yeah.
can't get a whole lot bigger than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but going back to that point of there's something that everyone can do. So I think most people, they're limited by their, man, I feel like I'm starting to quote things now, but they're limited by their perceptions of themselves, and they tell themselves these stories that they can't do things. And it's really about breaking that mental barrier and doing things, I think the belief precedes action a lot of the time. If you believe you could do something, you're more likely to do it. So that's something that I try to work on my mind with that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
a lot.
I agree 100%. And it can sound cliche. You're like, why do the same people keep talking about it? Well, the reason why people are talking about it, especially now, the reason why people are talking about it so much is because you now have the power. You're not like under the thumb of corporate America. You don't have to work for IBM. You don't have to work for Apple.
Yeah.
And if you choose to do those things and you want to be an engineer or something, I mean, those things are totally fine. And maybe those businesses will allow you to do a lot of the things that you want to do and express yourself the way you want to express yourself. But for people that are like, man, I'm not sure. I don't know what I want to do. Like, all I know how to do is draw, and like I can play some music, but I kind of suck at it, and like I don't know.
Yeah.
That's who we're talking to a lot of times. We're talking to those people, or somebody who's found a discipline with, they like to run every day, but they can't figure out other stuff in their life, and they're depressed, and they can't just figure out, how do I make money? How do I get a job? How do I feel more fulfilled? Those are the kind of people that we're chatting with, and there's a lot of people that are like that. A lot of people that are, graduated high school, or maybe even graduated college, and they're in an age range between like 18 to 32 or so, and they're just in limbo. They're like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't understand what I'm going to do. I don't know how to be Mark Bell, or I don't know how to be this guy or that guy. And what we're trying to explain, and what I'm always trying to explain here on the podcast, is it doesn't matter. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay you don't know where you're going. I never did either. I didn't show up on the fucking map. The United States government didn't know I existed. I didn't show up in any sort of on any sort of IRS taxes thing, or there's nothing. There's not really much of a trace of me before the age of like 30 or 31 or so. So if you don't know where you're going and you're not sure what you're doing, just fucking relax, take a deep breath, start to think about some of the things that you can do. And they don't have to be great. You only have to be good. You can turn things into greatness. If other actors saw you act right now, I'm sure a lot of people would be in agreement, yeah, he's really good. But what about 5 years from now?
Yeah.
5 years from now, they're going to go, holy shit. This is the guy that we want, right? The longer you're doing it and the more practice you have, the more experience you have, now all of a sudden the same person who they just thought was good is now exceptional. And nothing's changed.
Yeah.
Just some time went by. You worked a little harder. Maybe even you lost a job or two, or you missed out on Cobra Kai. You missed out on this. You missed out on that. And it's what you do with that. What do you do in those situations? Tuck tail and run and say, okay, man, I got to go back to collecting stamps and watching pro wrestling, or whatever the hell it is.
It's not a bad choice either.
Yeah, whatever the hell it is that you like to do. Or do I buckle down?
Yeah.
Do I double down, triple down? Do I work on this craft harder? And maybe your style of acting, in some cases, somebody's so different that it takes a long time for that to even shine through.
Yeah.
I always like to use the example of the lead singer from like AC/DC. Does he have a classically great singing voice?
Oh yeah, no.
Probably not, right?
No.
He sounds like a cat that's like getting strangled or something, right?
Yeah.
But it's fucking AC/DC. It's like one of the greatest bands of all time, right? And it's again, it's not about coming from anything special or anything in particular. It's about making a decision and then just going and not having too many reservations about what it is you're doing, and looking at things as they're not. Don't look at things as obstacles. Look at them as hurdles. And over time, you can learn how to jump over those hurdles. You could build up more stamina to jump over more hurdles in less time, and you can progressively keep moving faster, and you keep moving past stuff. And yeah, you're going to trip over some hurdles. You're going to have some that you can't get over. You're going to run right into a wall every once in a while, and you're going to fall back down, and you got to figure out how to get back up. And you look up, and like maybe you can't climb it, and so you fucking run around it. Like you just continue to figure out, how do I just keep moving forward?
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be any more complicated than that.
There was a philosopher that said it's not about how many times you get hit. Or no, what is it? I'm trying to quote that Stallone line now.
Oh, yeah.
But how many times you can get hit and keep moving forward?
It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up.
Yeah. It's that same thing that you got to keep moving forward. And that's the main thing. But also to know that the person that seems to have it all figured out probably didn't have it all figured out, 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
All right. And they probably don't now.
Yeah.
Probably just an appearance, like you don't think The Rock has bad days?
Exactly. Somebody like that.
The Rock's got bad days. I'm sure he comes home from certain things and probably just sits there and fucking cries, just like anybody else. Like you put in a lot of hard work, or something really shitty happens, your grandma dies, or something happens. Sometimes it's even just working so fucking hard. Sometimes it'll break you down. You're like, fuck, man, that was emotional.
Yeah.
I've lifted weights in here before where I just walk outside and just fucking cry. It's not because it's like a huge accomplishment. It's like because I got so like mentally prepped and mentally ready for it that it was like overwhelming. I didn't even know what to fucking do with it. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm not gonna cry in front of everybody. I better get out of here, you know.
Yeah.
And I saw Marcus do it a couple weeks ago. It wasn't like he's out there bawling, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It wasn't not out there crying a ton, but he squatted 705 for a double and a pair of knee sleeves. And there's a big story that goes on with everybody in here. There's a big story that goes on in everybody's life that's ever reached anything. And as you keep moving forward and as you keep getting to different spots, it can sometimes be overwhelming. You feel like you can't breathe. You're like, oh my God, like what's going on now? What is this? And it can kind of scare you. But again, you know, back to that point again, it's like there's I get a lot of people that ask me, you know, how do you get started? And it's like a dangerous question because you know, getting started is the easy part. You know, like you're in the middle of stuff now, okay, great. Now you're just thrown in a fucking giant pool of thousands of actors that are hungry, you know, and then how many of those actors are around your age, give or take 3 years? How many of those actors have a similar look? You know, how many of those actors have a similar skill set? And now it's like, okay, well, there's still probably a good amount, right? However, well, now there's other traits that start to show up. What about being on time? What about being professional? What about your personality? Now, like now it's like, okay, well, at least those things are like in my control.
Yeah.
You know, you can't control that you might look just like another guy or whatever, or you might have a similar style to somebody else. There's really not a ton you can do about it other than maybe rely on experience and switch things up. But the one thing you can control is you get to the set on time or even earlier than on time.
Yeah. And
you're the last one leaving and you're making eye contact with everybody. You're communicating with people. Josh over here, who we recently just picked up, every time the kid walks in the building, he comes over to me and shakes my hand, looks me in the eye and says, "Good morning, Mr. Bell. How you doing?"
Yeah.
Every time he leaves, does the same thing. Doesn't matter if I'm, you know, in the warehouse over here. Doesn't matter if I'm in the gym. Doesn't matter if I'm in the podcast room. He waits for an appropriate moment, and then he, you know, just it's those little things that you don't forget. You know, we had a guy that was working here a while back. Every morning when he came in, he hugged everybody.
Yeah.
Every time that he left, he hugged everybody. And yeah, it's like that's a little different, right? Not everyone's used to, you know, bro on bro hug every morning and every night or whatever, but it's those little tiny details that are the big difference. And it's not, you know, how you read your lines.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are doing similar things, but it is about what's in my control and then what can like maximizing what's in your control. And you really can't think about what's outside of your control. It doesn't really matter. You know, if it's outside of your control, just let it go. That's something about like the audition process, you know, that a lot of actors.
It's gotta be tough.
I mean, that's what they say.
Cattle call.
Well,
You're all lined up.
It can be tough because you see, you know, 50 other guys that look like you. The whole like pretty boy Latino category, and I'm like, damn it. But
you're like, I thought I had this wrapped up. In Modesto, it was easy.
But I mean, I never worry about it because it's like, I know all the things I have going on. I know what I'm moving towards, and I'm not competing with anybody else. I have my own goals. I have things that I have to do every single day. As soon as that audition's done, I'm not dwelling on it. I've got more things to do throughout the day. So, like, some actors are so associated with the identity of being an actor, and they're so invested into this, and it's like there's an ego around it that they can't let go of it. So whenever they have anything that hits their ego about that, like they miss an audition, they lose out on an opportunity, you'll see, but their whole confidence, their outlook on life changes, you know? They're completely down, but it's like, you got to get outside of just that. Like, you're a human being. You're not an actor. You're a human being. You know, you got all these different things going on. What impact are you trying to leave on this earth? And don't get so uptight about one audition, you know? And if you go in there with all that pressure, too, you're going to screw it up. That's the other thing.
Well, also, too, what if your acting leads to something else that's not acting?
Exactly.
You know? It's highly possible. It's highly probable, actually, because you want to be as open to as many different concepts as possible in order to really get
Yeah.
ahead, right? Because let's just say, for example, my friend Mike Catherwood, I've been on his podcast before. He does one with Dr. Drew.
Mhm.
He's on Entertainment Tonight.
Yeah.
He's on there every night now. He's like one of the main guys. Opportunities like that, I'm sure that Mike. I think Mike was a comedian for a while. I'd imagine he's got like headshots and stuff. He probably had
Mhm.
dreams of being an actor, and he probably has a laundry list of some acting gigs that he's done over the years, just like a lot of other people in Los Angeles, right? But he was open to the fact that maybe his idea of like being on television could possibly look a little different.
Yeah.
And also too, if it's a dream, it doesn't mean that the dream's over. It just means that the dream may have gotten sidetracked a little bit, but it actually is still picking up more momentum.
Yeah.
Because if you do anything that's relatable to your goal, which I'd say that's 100% relatable to your goal, being on TV almost every day, it's still going to lead you to a lot of the things that you want to do. It just might take you longer. People might be like, "Yeah, remember that guy used to be on like Entertainment Tonight?" Like
Yeah.
Mario Lopez, his thing was the opposite. He was an actor first, and then he ended up on Entertainment Tonight, right?
Yeah.
So I think people need to understand that, like, maybe as you start going towards your goal, you may start to realize that goal is going to be shaped and might look a little different than you originally thought.
Yeah. And you jump around a lot, but you're still moving forward is the main thing, And it doesn't have to be a linear path. You can take a non-linear path to get somewhere. But that leads me to something that I'm kind of interested in is kind of your approach to goals. Like what areas do you have goals in, and how do you tackle those every day? What's the actual practical day-to-day? What does that actually look like for you?
Yeah, my goals are, a lot of times they're a little bit more like checklists,
Okay.
because I think that checklists are a lot easier to do.
Mm-hmm.
A goal to like turn Slingshot into $100 million a year company, it's a goal,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a big one, and it's going to take a long time.
And you have that written down somewhere?
And I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I got a book of a bunch of weird stuff. It has a bunch of weird goals and different things that I wanted to accomplish. I didn't used to write stuff down, and it's because the goals used to be a lot more simple, and
Yeah.
and I just didn't have as many. And so
Yeah.
they change, well, your goals to become a millionaire. And okay, well, we handled a lot of the goals I had before we handled those,
Mhm.
and I say we is because like I view this as a team. This
Yeah.
is not about me. It used to be, and that's like the way it was specifically run that way for multiple reasons. Because I thought that would be what would carry us forward the fastest, and it did. And now we're kind of shifting and kind of moving into some different directions. But
Mhm.
my goals are checklists. Because it helps build momentum. So
Yeah.
what I mean by a checklist is, and it's as simple as this, and it's as simple as like executing all the way through. Okay, tomorrow morning. Actually, hopefully not tomorrow morning, but uh, let's just say, for example, tomorrow morning I'm waking up at 3:15.
Mhm.
I like mentally kind of prep myself for that, and
Yeah.
I prep my morning before I even go to bed,
Yeah.
so that I can get it done.
Mhm.
And that might not seem like a goal because it's like a physical thing that has to get done, and it's the next day.
Yeah.
But I found that when the goal is a checklist, it's so much more powerful, and it builds a lot of momentum for me. So I'll say, all right, wake up at 3:15 a.m. Before I go to bed, I'm like setting apart my because I'm on this bodybuilding diet right now, and it's
Yeah.
not as nutrient dense as some of the keto stuff I was doing, and so a lot of supplements. There's a lot of like pre-workout drinks and post-workout drinks,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
there's all this different stuff. There's meal prep. There's a lot of vitamins and minerals, and then there's all the steroids that go along with it, right, everybody? And so
setting those aside.
yeah, so I got everything all set up, so it's all like ready to go. So,
Yeah.
and then my shorts, my socks, my shoes. I'm
Mhm.
trying to make sure, and I didn't used to do stuff like this, but even before the bodybuilding stuff kind of came along, I would still prepare for the next day, but it would probably be more. It wouldn't be as physical. It'd be more like mental. Like, so-and-so's coming in tomorrow. Be fucking prepared. That guy's coming in. And, oh, shit, we got A, B, and C going on also. Let's make sure we get that done. But by having these checklists, it builds a ton of momentum. And before noon, I've already gone to the gym and done cardio. I already came back and I ate the way I was supposed to eat, which is another check. Like, there's these, I call it points on the scoreboard. There's these points that you can add to the scoreboard at every little turn, every little thing that you do in the course of a day can be looked at as a goal. Yeah. And did you meet that goal? And, on a scale of 1 to 10, did you follow through with it all the way? Did the alarm go off at 3:15 and you woke up at 3:45, or did it go off at 3:15 and you actually got your ass up and got the shit done that you needed to get done? Get the morning cardio done, and it's 40 minutes on the treadmill or 40 minutes on the Stairmaster, kicking the shit out of myself there. Yeah. Get home from that, recover from that. The next goal is to eat well. I get that accomplished, and then head to the gym and train again, and get a good training session in. That's actually like a goal, and that's actually takes mental preparation while I'm eating, when I'm at my house, and I'm taking my supplements, and I'm eating my egg whites, and I'm eating my oats. I'm thinking about the workout. I'm thinking about how I'm going to get the best effect from it. I'm thinking about who's going to be there. There's a whole kind of mental game plan going into all that. Yeah. When I drive here, I might listen to music or listen to a motivational speech of some sort and get hyped up, get excited. Might even walk around the building twice before I even walk inside, just to kind of get my body, mind, and spirit ready for the training session, so I'm prepared to take on what I need to do. Once that's all done, and again, it's hitting up another good meal and kind of relaxing a little bit, and then getting into the podcast. But it's before, like, I don't even know what time it is now, but it's basically probably before like 1 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, and already got an overwhelmingly good amount of stuff done today. Yeah, to where at like 1 or 2 every day, I can just be like, all right, cool. I hit everything I needed to hit. Now it's about family. Now it's about, is there anything that needs to get done in here? Like today, we're talking about CT Fletcher. I ordered a bunch of CT Fletcher shirts, so we're going to shoot something for him because he's my boy. Awesome. And he had a heart transplant, and he's just an awesome guy. I really admire him a lot, so we're doing something for him. And we have just other things to do, but I really think that it's important that people, the goal thing is great, but a lot of people have goals, and a lot of people have things that they talk about that they'll never really get around to. And what I've learned is to try, unless you're going to do something, or unless it's like just an idea, don't really say it. Don't really talk about it. Don't get it going. You're putting too much pressure on yourself. Yeah. It's those bigger goals are okay to have, but you can also say to yourself, you know what, that's like, that might happen in about 10 years. Yeah. Or 5 years. And that's okay. It might that one might take some time. And even if it's that you want to be on, in Guardians of the Galaxy 7 or whatever, whatever the goal might be for you coming up, even if it did happen in 10 years, it doesn't matter that it took 10 years. It still happened. Yeah. 10 years is actually really not that long. In 10 years from now, you'll be 33. So what? Yeah. Right? You still won't be old. 20 years from now, you won't even be old. Like, you'll be as old as me, basically. And I don't feel old. I feel fucking awesome. I feel like I can take on anything. So that's how I like to do it. I like to turn everything into more of a checklist and have it be more like stuff that you can actually do. Actionable, yeah. Yeah, rather than have it be stuff that's more like far out. I mean, even for this bodybuilding show, I'll probably weigh like 215 pounds or something. I'm not far away from that. I'm like 10 pounds away from that. So 10, 15 pounds away from that. So it's, it's all stuff that's like very, very close. I think if the goals are too far, I've used this analogy a bunch of times. It's, back in the day when you're playing Mario Brothers and you go to jump for that flag at the end, it's like you got to be very careful on how you jump to that flag. You need to get yourself in a certain position so you can jump at the flag at the last moment to pick up the most amount of points to land on the flag as high as possible, right?
Give yourself a good chance.
Give yourself the best opportunity you can to succeed. If you jump too late, then you don't get as many points, right? Yeah. And if you jump too early, you don't get as many points. So don't make that jump towards your goal. Don't make that leap towards your goal until the time is right. And you'll know the time is right because it'll be right in front of you. It'll be very, very close. Like, I want to bench. If you're talking about you want to bench 315, well, that's cool, but you didn't bench 275 yet. And there's a huge difference between 275 and 3, right? So it's have those goals be things that are like just kind of sitting in front of you a little bit easier, a little bit more obtainable.
Yeah, so not too far off where it's unreachable. One other thing I wanted to ask you about. So you're going into this bodybuilding show. The diet's changed a bit. You're getting higher carbs, right? Fat's probably cut down quite a bit. Protein's still high. What exactly is that looking like for you? Because I know you just came out of, like, the weight loss was a lot of fasting, a lot of ketogenic dieting, and now you're transitioning back into adding carbs. How do you feel on that? Like, what have you been noticing? What's your overall experience with that?
I feel really good, but I've been feeling really good for, quite some time. And even, I'll back that up and even go back to when I was fatter. I never really felt bad, like, especially during training sessions. I felt amazing. But the biggest difference has been more like in day-to-day life.
Yeah.
In day-to-day life, I feel a lot better, just walking around and being able to breathe a lot better. But I think one thing that I didn't really recognize was how much the poor diet was affecting just health, right?
Yeah.
So I think health, people just immediately think like, oh, like diabetes or cancer or heart disease. Well, heart disease, diabetes, and cancer all get chipped away a lot earlier than you might think.
Yeah.
And they get chipped away by the simplest thing that the body needs, which is sleep. And so I think that by not eating healthy foods and being bigger and probably being on way too many anabolics, I caused some damage, and I wasn't able to sleep for a long time. And so as soon as I started to bring my body weight down, and I want to make that very clear because I don't think it's the diet so much. I think it's about managing your body weight.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think I was like, I was 330 pounds at one point, right? So even just figuring out a way, how do I get down to like 260, right? How do I lose a significant amount of weight? I'm too fat. This is not working. It's compromising my health. Like, my blood pressure was high, and like things weren't like out of control. I did even get blood work done then, and surprisingly, it wasn't as bad as you may think, but it was really impacting my sleep. And your sleep is a real critical thing towards just about everything. So losing weight is a key aspect of. I shouldn't even say losing weight. Maintaining a healthy body weight for you is a key element in your health, and making sure that never gets too far out of hand. Somebody gains 10 pounds, 5 pounds, it's not a huge deal. But if you gain 5 pounds every Thanksgiving for the next couple years, then you're going to run into some issues. And so I didn't really recognize that was slowly chipping away at compromising my health and my performance in the gym. And then the change has been, the ketogenic diet, especially the way I was doing it more towards the end, was a very strict ketogenic diet. The book that I wrote, The War on Carbs, is a very general ketogenic diet where it's like, hey, look, man, dump the sugar, increase your fats, keep the carbs very, very low. And if I was to give you a number, keep it under 20 a day or so.
Yeah.
Throw in some vegetables and off you go, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not a ton of recommendations on protein. I just didn't want to bog people down with too much information. The ketogenic diet that I switched to more recently was like 80-90% fat. It was like through the roof. And I started to lose weight that way, and I do think that it's a way to kind of hack your system almost in some way. I know a lot of people say that, and some people don't like it or whatever, but I do think that it literally is kind of a hack when you do it. It is a really weird way to eat that much fat. But it did help me to lose weight, help me to lose body fat, and that was without doing any sort of cardio conditioning or anything like that. And then I had, Hani Rambod came on the podcast, and he kind of called me out on the podcast. He's like, "You're in great shape. You should do a bodybuilding show." And so here we are, and the diet has changed drastically. I was eating like probably almost 250 to 300 grams of fat a day.
Yeah, wow.
So that's a lot of calories of fat. And protein was probably at like 100, 150 grams, something like that, which is, pretty low, but pretty standard in accordance to a strict ketogenic diet. And then the carbs were non-existent. And that diet was feeling really good to me in a bunch of different ways. But, when Hanny came in and said that, I was like, well, shit, if you're going to help me, I'm not going to turn down world-class advice.
Yeah.
This guy's helped, coached Phil Heath and Jay Cutler to some Mr. Olympia titles. So I was like, man, I'm going to take that advice for sure. And so the switch has been, okay, pump the brakes here and chop out all your fat. Fat was brought down to about 65 grams. The protein is jacked up to 350 grams. And the carbohydrates are about 150.
Yeah.
And I've still been toggling that. I've still been learning that. I haven't even gotten it right quite yet, but it's had a huge impact on me. I feel like I'm getting in better shape like almost every single day. I feel like I'm getting leaner. And when was the last time you saw me?
About 1 or 2 months ago, probably.
Yeah, maybe I'd say about 8 weeks ago. Sounds about accurate.
Yeah.
And I'm in way better shape than last time you came. So
You've filled out more, I think.
Yeah.
So with that very, very high fat diet, how was gym performance? Was that still going well, or?
So, I mean, there's some things that I probably haven't shared with people that much. I've shared it with people in here in the gym. When your primary goal, we talked about this earlier. We talked about fixating on a specific goal so you can knock it out, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're focused on too many things, you can't figure out how to get it done, right?
Yeah.
My goal was to lose weight.
Yeah.
Period. And then everyone keeps asking about the gym performance and the strength in the gym. And that wasn't my goal. My primary goal wasn't there. Now, having said all that, because I was losing a lot of weight quickly, I was losing a lot of strength. And there's weird shit that goes along with that people should understand. First of all, with the ketogenic diet, you need to always know that it's really important to pay attention to your salt. And I knew about the salt, but I didn't really know about how important it was to try to balance it out with your potassium and to try to balance it out with your calcium. And so in talking to Stan Efferding and into researching it more and talking to Thomas Delore and, looking at it more, I was like, man, I don't eat any vegetables. And I know, there's the carnivore diet and things like that. And if you're not full carnivore and you're not really paying attention exactly to adhering to that strictly, if you're even just a little bit off of it slightly, then your results will be different. I guess let's just say that, like, Dr. Baker will say, well, yeah, you don't need the potassium levels, you don't need the vitamin C because you're not eating a lot of other crap that might require you to need higher levels and so on. But anyway, in my case, I wasn't strict carnivore, and I had to kind of look and search for other things to get potassium in, and so I started getting them in through spinach, kale, avocado. I think avocado has quite a bit more potassium than even a banana. Everybody always looks at banana.
Magnesium.
And I started just to learn about these nutrient-dense foods, and I just didn't know a lot about that before. But so then, even with the ketogenic diet, occasionally I'd mix in like a potato or something like that because a potato is high in many different types of vitamins and minerals, and sweet potatoes and things like that.
Yeah.
Rice doesn't really have much of anything in it except for carbohydrates.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it bad. It just doesn't have much in it. So, switching over to that and really dropping all that weight, my performance in the gym suffered a lot. It was hard to lift heavy, but not only that, every once in a while I feel like I was going to pass out.
Wow. Okay.
And so that has changed. I don't feel that anymore, but I think what I was really dealing with is I think I was really having a hard time with my balance of water. And I think that because of that, I think my blood pressure would be a little messed up. I think my blood pressure would actually be a little bit low.
Okay.
I would lift and then, put the weight down and just feel like I was going to fucking hit the ground.
Yeah.
But I do think that these are all things that happen when you lift really heavy. When you're bench pressing over 500 pounds, you start to accept certain things. You're like, yeah, my shoulder should fucking hurt right now.
Yeah.
It's a lot of weight. My knee should hurt, right? So when I started to lose weight, I'm like, you know what? Some of this is just part of the game. And I would say, it can be part of the game. Like, yeah, you are going to feel weird if you're in a calorie deficit, if you're doing a lot of intermittent fasting. You are going to feel weird in the gym, but don't ever give up on researching it and learning more, because I think that that's where some people can fail, and that's where some people can end up spinning out of the diet, because then they're like, they have a bad experience. What if I did pass out in the gym and hit my head on another bar or something? It would really sidetrack you for a while and really make you really rethink what you're doing, right?
Yeah. And they call it quits.
And then so
after an
now,
experience like that.
yeah, and so now implementing the carbohydrates, I definitely feel a lot better, and I'm able to get more out of training. But 150 carbs is still a drop in the bucket. Still not. It's not really that.
Yeah, that's not a high carb diet.
No, it's not. It's not an insane amount. So for now, I feel good. And even like some previous keto diets I've done before, I've had my carbs almost at the same range they are now. Just after doing a ketogenic diet for so long and building up more muscle mass, you learn that you can have more carbs here and there, and it doesn't really affect you all that negatively. 150 would be on the high end, but I would be anywhere between 50 and 100 probably.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So
you're probably more insulin sensitive at a lower body weight too.
Yeah, and that's actually what they found. I did there's a guy here in Sacramento. He does our DEXA scans, and he does some other work for us and stuff. And he hooked me up to a treadmill, and he tested not my VO2 max, but he was testing the energy output and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he found like the longer duration and the higher intensity of the workout, the more sugar I was burning. And he was like, man, this is really crazy, because he says, first of all, he's like, you burn a crazy amount of calories doing this kind of exercise, which was just basically, I was on a treadmill on a pretty good grade, and he kept cranking up the speed, but I never even got into like a run, but it was still very difficult because the grade got to be like 20 something or whatever. It was fucking hard. But what he found is like, I was burning more and more sugar. And he's like, and I was like, well, what do you think? I mean, what do you think that's from? He said, well, I think it's from two things. One is, he's like, it could be just the way you are. He's like, your body might like to burn sugar. I was like, how weird. I never even knew about that. Never thought about it. He goes, but I really think is going on is that you're more insulin sensitive, from doing a ketogenic diet, and your body's more accepting of carbohydrates because I'm leaner. So it makes more sense. I have less fat in my body, got more muscle in my body. And because of that, the muscles want to run off of glycogen. Yeah. Muscles aren't really going to be all that excited about ketones, probably.
Yeah, of course. With anaerobic stuff.
Right.
It's probably because all the years of being fat, your body's been fighting sugar for so long. It's like, we still got to keep fighting. It's going to go back. Yeah. What's your training looking like right now, Will?
Right now, what I've been doing, I'm just coming off of like doing more chest and back, real bodybuilding type splits. But with all the traveling lately, I leveled off of that, and I've been doing a lot of distance running. So just this morning, like hit 5 miles, and then I'm going to start getting into calisthenics. So getting back into that, and I want to work up to a couple goals in that. One is a 1-arm pull-up, which I've been so close to that multiple times. And then I drink too much water and it's gone. I don't take a dump and it's gone. So it's like that would be really, really fun to get that solid.
Yeah, your body weight would be a huge factor in that, right?
Yeah, completely. Like 1 or 2 pounds and you're thrown off. So calisthenics.
Like literally a 1-arm pull-up, or is it like one-handed with the other hand assisting, or how do you do it?
Like an actual like strict hang.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would suck. I don't think I know anybody that can do that.
No.
There we go.
Smoky, yeah. Yeah. Are you still following a carnivore diet today?
So I'm following probably a largely carnivorous carnivore diet. I mean, today I'm completely fasted. But the one thing that I've included lately is some low-sugar fruit. So some avocados, grapefruit every now and then, citrus, stuff like that. The main reason being there are some studies that are starting to come back that are showing with people that are doing the like the muscle meat carnivore diet, where they're not doing organ meats, they're not doing bone broth, stuff like that. They're seeing like folate deficiencies in some of them, and some things are kind of getting thrown off. They're not feeling that great. So to me, it just makes sense. I know that we're omnivorous. We can definitely handle carbohydrates. I'm very insulin sensitive, so I can handle them. So for me, it's mostly I'll be doing like beef, eggs, fish, some dairy, cottage cheese, stuff like that. Bone broth, sometimes cod liver oil, and then I'll also include avocados, maybe some berries, stuff like that. Doing about 1 or 2 meals a day. I like to train fasted. For me, that's ideal, but it doesn't always happen. So,
Have you seen anything from Stan Efferding? Have you seen the vertical diet?
I've heard of it, but I haven't seen too much about that. No.
I think you'd be interested. He's got some really good information. I mean, all he's really doing is he's sharing a lot of information that he finds from a lot of other leading experts in the world. It's also stuff that he's developed. It's the interesting thing about it is it's not sexy. There's not. He's not trying to sell you on like this is going to do this for your brain or this is going to do this for this or that.
Yeah.
And much like a lot of other bodybuilding style diets, Stan is selling you on the worst thing ever to sell anybody on, which is consistency.
Yeah.
I heard a quote recently where somebody said you don't have to be spectacular to be loved, right? That's from Mr. Rogers. And it was just his point to kids like, hey, you know what? Like, you can draw a painting of a tree and it can look like a frog and it's fine. Like you're still going to get a hug. Like you're still a cute, adorable kid, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about that just in general terms, I think that's actually very true. And we don't always realize that. You don't need to do anything spectacular. However, you need to be consistent.
Yeah.
And when it comes to bodybuilding, when it comes to not even bodybuilding, when it comes to nutrition, when it comes to having a good physique, and when it comes to being strong, there doesn't have to be a lot of spectacular things going on.
Yeah.
There just needs to be a lot of consistency.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you start using intermittent fasting, you start using keto, as long as you're not doing keto for 3 days and then going off the wagon and then doing keto for 3 days and then go, it's not gonna work the way that you you want it to. It's not gonna be optimal.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with that. Consistency for sure.
It's the hard part.
That's spectacular to me. Consistency. How many people can say that they actually follow through?
I know it ends up being like miraculous in some ways. Like having Jay Cutler here.
Yeah.
And having him say, I ate 7 meals a day. I did cardio every day, and I trained, chest, back, leg. He had to split and whatever, and I did it for 12 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, that's the worst story ever. Like there's no pills and there's no like what anything else? Did anything else happen in that time? No, nothing. Just lifting, just lifting and cardio and food over and over again.
4 times a day, 16 weeks.
It was actually funny, when he was talking about the eating 7 times a day. I actually looked it up and I found some research, and there was there's different studies and there's all kinds of different things, but it shows the average American eats how many times a day? Do you think?
I feel like probably 5 or 6 with snacks and all that.
15.
15. Wow.
So we thought Jay Cutler was doing good, and then I heard about that, and I was like, wow, that explains why everybody's so fucking fat.
Yeah. Why they're all so jacked.
But if you think about and this is just right. This is obviously a lot different than the way Jay Cutler's eating, right?
Course.
Like Jay Cutler's having chicken and rice and things like that, and other people are it's soda and just they're talking about consuming any calories throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I think people don't really realize that they're doing that.
No.
I think that's where something like fasting can really come in, because it can teach you about real hunger.
Yeah.
It can teach you, well, maybe that's overstated. It can teach you about whether you're actually really hungry or not. Real hunger is like a wholly different thing.
Yeah.
Where you don't have food and there's no food in sight and you're not sure how you're getting it. That's like real hunger. But to utilize some intermittent fasting, I think, would do everybody some good.
I agree with that.
Have you used intermittent fasting in conjunction with other diets, or mainly just keto?
I did intermittent fasting when I was vegan. So That's hard because as soon as your liver glycogen goes down, you're not well adapted to burning fat. So it's just like pain. It's pure pain, and you just want food, and then you end up going too hard and binging after that. So it's rough outside of a ketogenic diet. On a keto diet, it's honestly pretty easy for me to do 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. I don't really have trouble with that.
What happened, when you, at some point, you were excited about being an actor? What did that look like, in your household as a kid? Or what did that look like with your friends or other family members when you're like, you're in Modesto.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm going to be an actor. Oh, yeah, sure you are, Will. Like, yeah. I bet you're going to be an actor. No, I'm going to be an actor. Like, that's what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you should probably pick something. Maybe you should work at the local bank or like grocery store.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to be a fucking actor. What did some of that look like?
So I actually kind of did it the way you were talking about earlier, where I didn't tell anybody. I just started working towards it, and I figured people would find out eventually.
That's like Smokey. He trains his biceps behind our back every day.
No,
that's why they're so big. Look at those things.
Goodness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They grow 2 inches when he flexes them. Holy crap.
Years and years of concentration curls.
Exactly. No, I agreed with that a lot, where it's just, don't talk about it too much. Just do it, I think you spin your wheels too much when you talk about it. So I didn't really tell anybody. And by the time I told my family, they were actually very supportive. That was the crazy thing, because they know that I wasn't going to go towards it with a lazy mentality. They know I wasn't going to be, just, wasting time with it. So they knew I was going to apply work ethic to it. So they supported me wholeheartedly. And I'm definitely grateful to them for that. Yeah.
You have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I got a little brother who is 15, a little sister who's 13, and then older sister who is 25.
Your parents ever come to you and like they're just like, you're a lot different than than our other kids? I mean, I have children, and you're very young and seem like you're very focused at such a young age. Even just to know your some of your goals and some of your desires as an adult at a young age is rare.
Yeah.
Are they kind of like looking at your brother, maybe being like, "What the fuck's he gonna do?"
Step the game up, man.
Yeah.
No, it's a crazy thing, but my mom did an amazing job with our family. So she came from Guyana, which is like a country in South America, described as a third world country, and she instilled in us just a strong mentality. That lady's a tiger. So she always had us, working hard from a young age, and
You're
we
saying
were
that she
pretty
used to
focused.
beat you guys.
Exactly, as only a Caribbean woman could do. Everything, the remote, the shoe. So no, she definitely had us working hard from a young age. But one great thing she did for us was she talked us up a lot. So she always told us anything we wanted to do. She would say, "Oh, you could do better than that. Like you're gonna kill that." I thought Donald
That's
Trump.
amazing.
I thought Donald Trump was the greatest when I was a kid. Loved him, and I remember reading this book, and I was like, man, I love Donald Trump. And then I remember her telling me, like, yeah, you'll be greater than him. You could do that. And I was like, for a mother to tell a kid that, it instills a great deal of confidence. And she would train us for spelling bees, and then we'd go win a spelling bee, and then we thought we were smart, So she did a lot to boost our confidence. And I think that's really crucial. I'm definitely planning to do that for my future kids, because it's had a world of impact on me. It's what gave me the confidence to go into different fields where I pretty much don't even belong, and then just go in and attack them and go for it, and things work out,
That can help you a lot with your communication just with other people.
Yes,
when
absolutely.
somebody tells you, hey, man, I was thinking about, and it just doesn't really do you any good to say, hey, well, why don't you think about something else? Yeah. It's just so much easier to say, hey, man, you know what? I think you should attack that with everything you got. I think you're going to do great doing that.
Yeah.
And then that person walks away like, really? Fuck, okay.
Yeah.
I felt awesome. Oh, okay, I am going to do that.
And if they believe it, there's a good chance they'll do it, you know, if they apply themselves to it.
Yeah.
So, I owe
what
a lot
about
to her.
resistance other places? What about from friends? You going to be an actor? You going to be in theater?
I didn't really care what they said, because it's like they're not going to stop me from getting up at like 4 a.m. They're not going to stop me from doing what I need to do throughout the day. So
fuck those guys.
It ran through my mind a few times, but No, I use that as motivation, like it's okay to play angry, so I would, if people would say things like that to me, I would probably be more focused that day. I would be, attack things a little bit harder, and then I would log it and they're off the team. So, but
They're
no,
marked.
they're marked, exactly. No,
What
so
are some of the goals now that are kind of lofty that are out there that you might be almost embarrassed to share with us? Like, there's some really high ones. Like, you want to be like somebody else, or you have a desire to land on this crazy TV show, or you want to direct your own thing, or anything like that.
yeah.
Couple crazy ones.
A lot of crazy ones.
He's like, oh shit, here we go. He just whips out a big list.
There is a list. No,
You got to put it
I'll
out there in the universe.
I'll just say, I definitely agree with the philosophy of going for it and doing it. So that's my main thing going forward. But the areas that I really want to execute in are involved in fitness and nutrition for the majority of Americans, not for people that are attempting to excel, be number one in the sport. So I'm not really aiming for elite performance, but it's
Help people be less fat.
exactly get the country as healthy as possible in the biggest way possible. Make a huge impact in action adventure films. So there are certain ways I've quantified that or what I want that to look like, but that's the general gist of it. And then some form of philanthropy and giving back, whether that's public service or whether that's as a private citizen working in philanthropy, but devoting a good portion of the remainder of my life, once I've kind of, done a lot of the things that I wanted to do, towards inspiring people, giving back, sharing what knowledge I've acquired. So that's
They say that, like, I think it wasn't in all the states, but it was just an estimate. Like, in 2030, there's in some of the states there'll be over 70. If we continue on the rate that we're going, there'll be over 70 percentile of children that are obese. Fucking crazy, right? So I think that you're attacking something that's a good cause, and I think that more people need to be focused on that. It's one of the most pressing issues of our time, and I know there's a lot of other things going on. There's a lot of other things to focus on, and there's all kinds of things to focus on, right? That are really important for us to get around to. But the health thing it always gets swept under the rug, and people are always talking about like healthcare and all these different things. It's like, man, if we just weren't so fat, we wouldn't have to worry about it as much. Like, if we just could eat and I think, to have everybody be skinny, like, obviously, like, that ain't gonna happen, right? To have everyone look the same or be the same, that's not gonna happen. But to have people make some small changes and to feel better, to have people lose some weight and keep some of the weight off. A lot of Americans have lost weight many, many times over again, only to gain it back and then some, oftentimes. And it's a really sad. It's a sad place. It's a sad thing that we have people that are losing body parts because they can't stop eating. They end up with diabetes and they lose their foot or their leg. It's a really crazy thing, and it's easy just to look at those people and, man, they're fat and lazy. It's like, no, it's maybe they have become that way, but it's a lot more complicated of a story.
Yeah.
You have any ideas or any plans in terms of like how we can get some momentum to try to fix? Like, you went to the keto conference and stuff. How do we get some momentum? How do we gain America to be fit?
So the science is there and the strategies are there. So what's missing is public education. What's missing is nobody's taught about this stuff in schools, and while we're having biology class, it might be more beneficial for, a lot of young people to learn about their actual health, to learn about how to actually lose weight. So all of the science is there, but the problem is marketing. So what I think personally, what that's going to take beyond just books, it's podcasts, it's TV shows, it's getting it really out into the culture. That's a huge part. And then speaking to kids, speaking to young people, because I think it's really going to come from young people. What you learn in school, you take with you throughout your whole life. You don't forget that stuff. So I think that that's going to be crucial, and that's an area that I really want to execute on if coming from Power Rangers, it gives me a nice platform where kids will want to listen to what I have to say about that. So it's just a matter of putting the information in a digestible format, and then getting that out there. But it's going to be a lot of volume. It's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to be just like Arnold did with the Fitness Crusade.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be a year-long, decade-long, kind of thing that has to happen. So, but it's doable. It's doable. Look at how many gyms there are out there. Look at how many people have gotten
Yeah.
into weight training and bodybuilding and all those kind of things. Mainly because I think of his crusade, and mainly because of him going around and like spreading the word on this kind of stuff. So that tells us that it's possible. Now there are more forms of communication, media, ways to reach out to people than ever before. Why not take advantage of it? All it takes is, time and effort and, putting that in. So,
Right. And there's some things that people can do that don't always have to be so hard.
no,
You know,
no, not at all.
you've
Yeah.
already mentioned it earlier on the podcast. It's like you make things out to be a little bit more than they really are,
Yeah.
and then you don't end up doing them.
Yeah.
Because you're like scared or nervous. I mean, someone who's really heavy, hey man, you got to get to the gym. You got to eat less. It's like first of all, they don't want to go to the gym. They're too apprehensive. They're too shy. They feel too
Yeah.
weird. They don't know where to start. Right. But getting somebody to walk,
Yeah.
hey, you know what? Like, and also not even just telling someone to go on a walk, ask them to go on a walk with you.
Yeah.
Or if it's if somebody's asking about, if I get this a lot, like people ask me about family members, I'm like, well, just ask the family member, like if they want to go on a walk, they'll probably say yes.
Yeah.
Maybe they can only walk for 5 minutes, but it's 5 minutes more than they were doing before. There's, all sorts of strategies you can implement to be an addition to people's lives rather than a subtraction. If you start with subtraction, you'll end up with a lot of resistance right away. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like we can't just say, "Hey, we got to, pull out all your carbs."
Yeah. Yeah.
That can be effective. And it's good information to give people that they are eating too many carbohydrates. But at the same time, the story probably has to be told over a longer period of time,
Yeah.
so that they can develop, or so they can have the education to use the education as a weapon to create the habits that they
Mhm.
need. In my daughter's school, they learned a little bit about nutrition, but most of the stuff she's learned from me and from my wife at home. And it was like maybe about 3 years ago. She's like sitting on our stool and she's eating something, and she's like, Dad, she's like, I'm gonna be 9, and I think I have too many chub rolls. So it's like, she's like, I got like 3 when I'm sitting here. She's like, look at these chub rolls. She's grabbing her stomach,
Yeah.
And I said, well, I said, I've talked to you a little bit before about, food and stuff. And I said, I'll help you in any way that you want. If there's something, you want to learn more, you want,
Mm-hmm.
I said, I don't want to ever, make you feel a certain way about your body or whatever. So, I think you're cute. I think you're adorable. But I said, there's a lot of really easy things that we can do. And the good news is, you're growing and you're getting taller all the time. And I said, so it's not like you have to like reduce or get rid of, all the foods that you like. I said, you just might need to cut back on a few of them, and so I told her, I said, hey, let's look online for a book that has nutrition, because I didn't want it to come in just from me,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I said, there's probably books on nutrition for kids, and I always liked the book. It's just called Eat This, Not That. I don't know if you ever saw it before, but it's really simple. Like you go to Applebee's, right, and in the book, Applebee's is in this book, and it shows you. I'm sure it's an app, right, but
Probably.
in the book, it will say, this meal from Applebee's has XXX calories, XXX carbs, and all these things, right?
Yeah.
And it will say, try this instead of that. And I'll have another recommendation. Try the iced tea with a twist of lemon, and the chicken sandwich and no fries, or just stuff like that. And so it gives you an option. Here's 1,300 calories versus 700 calories, and it's still a meal that probably tastes pretty good, right? And so we stumble upon that book, and they make that book for kids, and so we ordered it, and it just gave us an opportunity to discuss that more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what would have to happen in schools would be, going and talking to kids would be great, because you can get kids excited about fitness and about exercise and about movement, and maybe some kids will also be disappointed because maybe they can't do maybe they have trouble doing push-ups because they're heavier kids, and then maybe they go home and talk to mom and dad about it. But what would be really cool would be to try to get those parents and get some of those people, get the teachers, get everybody involved.
Yeah.
And communicate with everybody on how we're all going to attack this. Because, if it's just the kids, then maybe the message is lost just because it's, they're maybe too young.
Yeah.
But man, what a daunting task, right? Like,
what a fun challenge.
It's
gonna be good. It is a huge challenge ahead of us, especially with that statistic you mentioned.
Yeah.
70%, and that does look like where it's headed. But it's doable.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and it's just, there's so many snacks.
Yeah, it's
God,
all the snacks and the marketing and.
God damn, they taste good. Doritos,
double stuffed Oreos or 1.6 stuffed Oreos.
You got any poop stories for us? That's part of this podcast, right?
Yeah, you've been traveling a lot, probably going on and off the diet, not necessarily
what
finding
what about
bathrooms.
getting in your costume and everything, and then like,
ooh, yeah.
I got a story for you right now.
Let's do it.
I've never had to pee as bad as I do right now.
Go for it. Go for it. We'll talk. Go ahead.
Yeah.
And it's not a poop story, I promise. Watch how fast it's going to be.
Okay.
You're on the clock.
Right.
I got him clocked in out. Okay.
Is this our first actor, Andrew?
We've
We've had some wannabes, I think, before. I don't think we ever had.
I can't think of anybody else. We've had artists here and there, but none.
I think this is going to lead to Tom Cruise next. What do you think?
Are you down for Scientology?
No.
Okay, well that's gonna stop it right there.
That's gonna throw things off a little bit.
Yeah, we'll just skip straight to The Rock.
Have you ever tried any acting? You ever tried what about like in school or anything? You ever try like a play or anything like that?
No, and the funny thing is like I kind of always wanted to, but like I just hated school. Like I didn't want to do anything. Like like I would see like the like drama nerds or whatever, and be like, dude, that looks like fun. Like because they're always having fun, but no, I never I wasn't outgoing or anything, especially during school.
I would always just look at that stuff and be like, that's stupid. It's because I wanted to do it too.
Exactly.
And I wanted to try it, but I was too scared.
Yeah.
So I was like, those guys are dumb.
Yeah, those guys are lame. Look at those nerds having fun.
Yeah, look at those guys.
Yeah.
It's hard, like doing pro wrestling and getting in front of a camera and talking and you've seen with me, like, we do the promos and stuff for the products and stuff.
Yeah.
And I have no trouble saying, hey, this is the X sleeve and it has denim on the front and it's made this way and this is why it's the strongest and best knee sleeve in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give me a script, it makes it more difficult.
Yeah.
You hit all those points. It's not like I can't do it. It's just unfamiliar territory to me.
Yeah.
There's so many different...
it builds anxiety, and you kind of like, okay, I don't want to fuck this up. And then the first thing you do is you fuck it up.
Well, and because like maybe you wrote it, right? And so maybe it's kind of like a different style of wording than what I would use.
Right.
And I just can't get that last sentence to go, and I got to do it 5, 6, 7 takes. And then it just feels like once you do a bad take...
It just snowballs.
Yeah, then they're all bad takes.
Yeah. I don't know. Like he was saying, like, trying to remember 2 pages worth of dialogue. I'm just like, dude, I can't even, not even close. Like, I can't even remember like an Instagram post or something,
Yeah.
So to have all that built up and then try to like portray something on screen, I don't know, man. It seems really, really difficult. But it does seem like
dude,
fun.
That was a fast poop. You must have pooped in our sink.
I just committed a poop story.
Oh.
Yeah, I like that squatty
potty.
Thing. What is that?
It's to blast it out better. Like, so it puts your, it puts your legs up.
That's where the speed came from.
It's like it's like putting your feet in the stirrups,
Yeah, I still can't get into position though. Like
it's hard.
Yeah,
you can hurt your back on that thing. I think
it's dangerous.
You have to do stretches just to be able to use it.
Yeah, it rounds you over.
Yeah.
Hey, what happens when you have a lot of bad takes when you're acting? Does that throw you off?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, one thing I hate.
Does it get you like frustrated? I mean, it must
Yes.
get you like really like you start getting like right.
I've gotten this thing before where I like the way I'm doing something, and I'm like, let's go with that. And the director won't exactly tell you what he's going for, but he's like, can we just kind of try this? And you do it over and over and over again, and then you start to see the camera guys looking at you, and the lighting guys are starting to shake their head, and you're like, oh god, that's frustrating, man. That's really frustrating.
I've had that happen before, actually, where the guy was like, he clearly didn't like what I said,
Yeah.
but he wouldn't say that.
Mm.
And he was like, well, maybe you should try this.
Yeah.
But it was every time he said to try that, it was like a lot of words and a lot of like way that I would never do it. And but I was just supposed to be myself. It was for like a reality TV thing, you know. And I'm like, well, I don't talk that way.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I could try it, but I think it's gonna look stupid because you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a couple takes that way, and I was like, that's not. I was like, I think that's worse, you know.
Yeah.
But it was like just not matching up with what he thought versus what I thought. But it's got to be really frustrating when you have specific lines.
Yeah.
And there's like one word for some reason your body won't allow you to say it, or you're supposed to say it in a certain way and you forget it.
So just to even take specific lines and to try to make that natural and make it sound like you would say it, that can be tough when you're talking about like, let's open the Ninja Nexus prism and shoot the shooting star into the thing. And you're like, how would Will say this? You know, and I'm working on it. And then you go in there and you do it. And then on top of that, the worst thing is if you're getting like a line reading. So this kind of sucks, but pretty much if a director or a producer or something, they're just not liking it. And they finally just come up to you and they're like, look, do it like I'm doing it. And you're like, oh God. So you're pretty much mimicking the guy. That sucks. But, that's rare, though. For the most part, there's a lot of respect for the actors and for what they want to bring to it. And they have to trust their casting decisions as well. Right. You know, we had multiple rounds of casting, multiple auditions. So if they didn't know us by then damn, you know, that's who they hired. So You hired me to do the job. Let me do the job, you know.
They're just like, cut. We're just going to move on to another scene. And just like that whole section is just cut out of the movie completely.
We're just going to put the director in the costume and let him do it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Sometimes when I'm looking at a photo or something like a big print or a magazine cover and I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, that's a shitty photo. And it drives me nuts. Do you ever, like, is it hard for you to watch TV or something and be like, what the, like, how did they let this get through the editing table? When you see like an actor doing something lame or something? Or you're just not a hater like me, I guess.
I feel like I've had a lot of trouble nowadays with suspending disbelief, you know? So just watching movies without having like an analytical eye towards it. Mm-hmm. Because now whenever I'm watching these things, like we just watched, what was it, Jurassic World, yeah. The newest one. And when I'm watching that...
Why'd you guys do that to yourselves?
It wasn't bad. I don't think it was a bad movie. I like Chris Pratt. But when I was watching that...
He's pretty good.
All I'm watching is like all of these lines that they have to say. I know that everything was on a script in paper. Now, what did they do to bring it to life, you know? And they make it pretty seamless a lot of the time. Like the little girl was great. And that's a tough thing to do sometimes with kid actors, you know, to get them to just flow into it perfectly. So I do see myself doing that a lot now. Like I'm analyzing everything.
Yeah. Sometimes some of those kind of movies could be like almost... mechanical, right? And a little bit like almost like a music video-ish. Like it's like this montage, and then somebody's got their one-liner, right? And then it's like you're
real
like,
predictable.
It's like a little stiff,
Stick around.
Right? yeah. Like this is just a little too tight.
Did you watch the Power Rangers movie?
I did watch that. Yeah.
I'm trying to watch it right now. It's taken me all week.
I'll end up in jail if I tell you my take on it. So
gotcha. So I haven't even gotten to the part where they actually morph into anything. So I'm still early. It's just time, and then I start falling asleep. So I haven't been able to watch it all the way through. But
what are some of your favorites?
Movies of all time? Oh, that's fun. Man, so I'm definitely a junkie with the old action adventure type thing. So I just started getting into Van Damme stuff lately. Never watched any of his movies.
Bloodsport.
Yeah. Just started getting into him. Nice. I love big, epic.
I should go back and watch some of those with my son. My son would like that. He'd like those.
Oh, that's a coming of age thing. That's like a rite.
Rite of passage.
Yeah.
What'd you say beyond that? What was the movie said?
I love stuff like Troy, Kingdom of Heaven, any of those like big epic, you know, those kind of movies. So those are the roles that I'm aiming for, that stuff, whatever path takes me, you know, to get there. But that's the kind of stuff that I want to do.
What about Braveheart?
Oh, Braveheart. Perfect example right there.
That's one of Mark's favorites right there.
Yeah. Freedom, man.
Oh, yeah.
I love that movie. Yeah.
I can't see myself like going method and playing a crackhead, like going through a midlife crisis type thing. It's just like I have so much respect for people that approach acting as that sort of craft, the transformational art of acting.
Yeah.
But the movies I watch are to entertain me, you know, and there are different audiences. They're making those movies for a different audience. I want to make movies to entertain people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what The Rock's doing now. It's kind of like what a lot of those big action stars did in the 80s, 90s, stuff like that.
And you have an agent, right?
Yes.
And then the agent does the agent come to you with suggestions? Do you suggest stuff to the agent? Like, how does some of it work?
So there's a bit of both of that. Most of the time, they'll be forwarding different projects to you. Like you check out the script sides, whatever. If you want to do it, you go ahead, audition for that, move forward. And another thing that I'll do is if I see a project on the horizon, I'll really push for them to market me for that. So, you know, if we can get in contact with that casting director, do we know anybody there? Can you pitch me to them and see if I could get a role on that? So it's a bit of both of those things. But my current representation, I'm still pretty new with. So new managers, new agents. I kind of got a new team once I came back from Power Rangers, because the team that got me to Power Rangers wasn't going to get me much further than that. Which isn't to knock them. It was just, you know, how the process works.
Gotcha.
So I've had to kind of create a new team around me, and I'm happy with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you worried about like accepting like the role of the bad guy? Because we've been watching 13 Reasons Why. I don't know if you guys watch it at all, but like
No.
the main bad guy, apparently in real life, he's a super nice guy. But if he
Yeah.
plays anything else, all I'm gonna be like, dude, you raped chicks.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like if say a money sign came with a certain role, like that'd probably be a pain in the ass to have to deal with, right?
There are certain roles that I've just decided from the outset that I don't want to do.
Cool.
There are just kind of certain things that I'm not down to do, because I always think like my little siblings are watching what I do. My extremely Catholic mother is watching what I do. You know, and it's not that I necessarily have all the same standards as them, but I want to maintain a certain standard for them. So it matters a lot to me the kind of content I do, and I've turned down countless roles from my agents and managers, and they get on me about it because there's a lot of money involved with these things. But I always remind myself, it's like I was doing this when there was no money involved. You know, I was doing it for free. I was doing the short films and stuff. So why make choices that I'm not happy with for money? You know, like it doesn't cost that much to eat and to rent a place when you're a single guy and that kind of thing. And by single guy, I mean a not currently married guy.
As you're like
Good
kind of
Yeah, you see that?
as you're kind of climbing this ladder, it's got to be a little hard. Like if you wanted to be on, say, like Game of Thrones, like if you were to say something that's maybe outside of your current, I'll just say ranking for lack of a better term, what would your agents say about that, or would they just kind of go try and attack it anyway?
If I were to pitch something to them that's like super big,
Yeah,
you're saying?
yeah. If you're like, hey, I want to,
It's the Rock, Kevin Hart,
or
and
would they
me.
just tell you like, I mean, would they
love it.
flat out tell you like, hey, that's not in our best interest. It's like a kind of a waste of time for now. Like, let's focus on some of these other things because you're still climbing that ladder.
For the most part, they would go for it, because a lot of the time with these roles, like Cobra Kai, for example, was going up for the lead part in that. And it's like a lot of these roles, they're looking for people that haven't been discovered yet. You know, they want to make the next star. So going for those things, they don't really have an issue with that. If you fit the part and, you know, if you're what they're looking for and they can put you in addition to some big names that are going to draw money and things like that, they're cool with that. So obviously, if you're about to star in a huge franchise, like look at Star Wars, for example, a lot of the people that are starring in that, they're relative unknowns. You know, they weren't doing the biggest things before that. Same with Game of Thrones. So there's a lot of room to just skyrocket overnight with that kind of stuff. So they're not necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily count me out of that kind of stuff. So I pitched that to them. But it does have to be the right thing, because if they have too many sour experiences with casting directors, the casting directors won't listen to their recommendations anymore. If every time they send me out for something I suck, you know, they're going to stop sending me out for stuff. So it's definitely like a mutual partnership. I want to do the best, and they want to do the best for me. They make money when I make money, so yeah.
How do you deal with rejection? That's got to be kind of a hard thing. I mean, you did kind of mention you just kind of move on, but it's got to hurt in some way. There's got to be a lot of rejection in acting, I'd imagine, right? Like, oh, you're not like. I know that you're probably trying not to take it personal because they're looking for somebody specific, but at the same time, like I'd imagine it does get a little personal.
Are we talking before or after I cry?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I swear to God with this, it's just like I don't get my self-worth anymore from what people tell me, like, oh, if a casting director told me, listen, you suck as an actor, you need to find something else. I wouldn't really care because to me, I understand how this, it's like you get under 135 when you're starting out and you fail. Are you going to tell yourself like, okay, well, I guess weight training's not for me? So I don't worry about that because I know that who I am today is not who I am in a year or in 10 years or in 20 years. And that sounds like, it maybe sounds like cliche, motivational quotes and stuff like that, but it's the honest to God truth. Like you really can't let people decide your direction for you or your self-worth.
Have you ever been real disappointed that you didn't get a particular role? Like you really thought you were going to land one and it just, didn't work out and you're kind of heartbroken?
If the one that I've completely, I stacked all of my chips with this one was the Power Rangers one. I was never more laser focused on one role in my life than that one. And I completely believed in. So I still have this picture on my phone, but I took a picture of like the Red Power Ranger, put my name under it, starring William Shewfelt, and that was a good 4 months before the final casting decisions, all that kind of stuff. I was completely emotionally invested in that, mentally invested. Nobody could tell me anything about it. Had that not worked out, I would have been extremely butthurt. I would have been very disappointed. But
that makes sense.
Since then, I kind of take a lot of these things in stride, and you fail a workout, you fail a rep, whatever it is, you just kind of bounce back from that and figure out the game plan going forward and keep going. But it's not a personal thing, though. Like the casting directors, they're trying to make money. They're trying to do their job. The producers are trying to make money and do their job. So if they tell you suck for a role or you're not the right person for it, maybe they're right. Who cares? It's a business.
Right.
And a lot of actors come from a very artistic or emotional kind of background. Maybe that's part of coming from economics where, like, I get what they're talking about. Like, it is a business. Maybe I wasn't right for this. I'll work harder and I'll come back next time. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram for one. So that would be at William Shewfelt, SHEWFELT. They can also find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Will Shewfelt. And those are my two main platforms. I also recently released, it's sort of like my approach to training, cardio, fasting, and a more carnivorous ketogenic diet.
Oh, cool.
So it's like the Carnivore Shredding Program. So that's on thecarnivoreshreddingprogram.com. So they could check that out as well if they're into that approach. That's pretty much it.
Anything else coming up?
Let's see, what am I up to right now? So the thing I'm working on right now is a book project that would actually, it's completely in line with the kind of thing we were talking about. So I really want to market the heck out of this thing once we have it out there, published in the shelves. But that would basically be the best biohacking tips, nutrition tips. It's kind of like an overall best practices that the average American can implement. It's very accessible. That would create the most dramatic, positive changes to their health.
That's gonna be really cool. That's almost like a Tim Ferriss style of book, but it's specifically for nutrition, diet. Yeah,
exactly. So if you have like a Tools of Titans, that sort of book, it's essentially like choose which of these you want to do, and we're gonna rank, what's the most effective, what's gonna create the biggest lifestyle change. You always want to knock down that lead domino, and get the rest of the things out of the way, but it's going to combine, a lot of the practices that people know about: intermittent fasting, lower carbohydrate diets, whole food diets, and then it's also going to go into cold exposure, circadian rhythms, sleep, hormonal levels, what you can do to, kind of decrease your cortisol.
There's a lot of things to talk about.
There's a lot of things to
Yeah.
talk about. So it's going to try to just simplify what's best value on every single thing, and then
Yeah.
here's how you can do these things without having to go to a lab or something like
Right.
that.
Very cool. Well, that's all the time we got. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.
All right.